Welcome to Three is a Crowd. I'm Julie.
And I'm Terrence.
So, how does anyone decide to have another kid?
We're a couple debating this decision for ourselves and inviting you to listen in.
It's not weird.
It's a little bit weird. So this is it.
The big reveal.
The final episode.
If you've been listening from episode 1, dear faithful listener.
Good job.
Good job, and we hope this episode gives you the resolution, the end to the story that you've been hanging on for.
The closure that you've been desperate for. I think it will. I think it will give you that. But we're just going to get into this episode. We're not going to do a big introduction. I just want to let you know, dear listener, that this episode starts a bit strangely. So it's still Julie and I talking, but in a very different context from what you're used to. So it's going to sound a bit strange to start, but trust me, it all settles down. Well, kind of. It kind of settles down.
We're recording this the night before we release. Our intros are always recorded in the week that we release the episode. But please hang tight till the end, because we will do a little closing wrap up for our conclusion to bring you up to speed to where we are today.
Yeah, and today is literally the night before we release this. So if you're listening to this on the day of release, hi. This is Terrence and Julie from last night.
Eek.
Okay, let's get into this episode. This is I've been waiting for so long for this episode to go. This is gonna be great. This is it. This is episode number 6, The Reveal.
But if someone said to you, what shape do you see in the circle?
What am I doing? Okay. It's not a faint line. It's a...
Then what?
Okay, I see a faint line. Hey, I love you.
I love you. Oh my gosh, what are you doing?
So what you just heard was our reaction this morning. You've been giving us the updates at the beginning of every episode, and I think it is the correct thing to do for you to give us the update for this episode.
What?
What's going on? Where are we?
Okay. So we are more than a couple of months into this journey now, and
we're at least 6 episodes into the journey.
Yeah. And honestly, at this point, I honestly was like, it's just not going to happen. In fact, I was actually getting to the point of, okay, like, how do we start wrapping this process up now? Because it's going to just drag on month after month after month of just being sad. But then, last night, so my period is due today, but my period always kind of gives me like a little hint that it's coming the day before.
Yeah, you normally have like 2 or 3 days of some sort of warning system.
Yeah, and that hadn't happened, but all the symptoms were there that were, like, could be period symptoms, could be early pregnancy symptoms. But last night we got back from our holiday, and I just thought, on a hunch, let me just, you know what, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and my period's going to be there, obviously. But if it isn't, I want to make sure that I don't, because I normally I'm bursting to go to the loo when I wake up. And so I thought, let me just grab a disposable cup. And then, if I go to the loo and there's no period in the morning, obviously I'm going to have my period in the morning. But if it isn't, then I've got it by the side of the toilet, and I can just, do a test, rule it out. Obviously it means my period's coming later in the day. Maybe it's a day late, being on holiday, being relaxed. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, because your period isn't like clockwork. It's never been...
It's not like clockwork, but I've
lately
been...
it's been...
But obviously
you've been tracking it well.
I've been tracking it for the last now, more than a couple of months. And so I sort of have an indication of when it should be. So anyway...
It wouldn't be unheard of it to be a day later.
No, because it's always been early. But, why wouldn't it be late today? Again, yeah. So I actually woke up at about 6 this morning. And I was too nervous to get up to go to the loo. I got up at about 6:30, but at 6 I woke up and I was like, no, because basically what I thought was, I'm gonna go to the loo, and obviously any little tiny glimmer of hope. I mean, we'll get into it, but the percentage of hope that I had for this month was so low, and even
5%. I think
it was like 5%, and you were on like 20% or something.
Yeah.
You know, which was actually lower than any of the other months. It's been getting progressive. We've been getting progressively.
We thought was more realistic.
Yeah, more realistic and hopeless.
So this morning
So I got it.
You're fighting hope.
Fighting hope. So, and eventually at about 6:30, just before 6:30, I crawled out of bed. I sat down. I obviously checked, and there was nothing. And I was like, and then I kind of.
When you say there was nothing, you checked as in there's no period.
There was I wasn't bleeding. And then I did what I'm sure many, many, many women before me have come. I did a good old fashioned squeeze and check. Nothing happened.
I don't understand what
you're not going to get it. The women listening will get it.
Okay.
Don't worry. You don't have to get it. But
fine.
you're just like, and nothing happened. And then I'm like, okay, I really need to pee. So I peed into the cup. But I had to I wasn't sure like what my pee quality was going to be. And it was too much.
As in too much wee or too little wee?
No, as in like, I don't know if there's anything about if there's any discrepancy around, the last bit of wee or the first bit of wee, like what do you catch? Because it's like the first wee of the morning. And so it's going to be more than a cup. Anyway, I kind of did half and half.
What do you mean half and half?
As in we're going to cut all this out as well.
As in you weed half in the cup, half in the toilet?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course.
And
I don't understand why you have to go through this detail, but okay.
Because I agree, we're going to cut all this out. I'm saying it with immediate regret.
But anyway, you managed to weed in a cup this morning.
I weed in a cup. I put the test in. I put in early detection test, but it's not a clear blue early detection test.
It was the only test we could find, or that you had stock that you had left, and it was a cheaper.
It was a cheaper early detection test. It's not going to give you as many days early but anyway, I was like, it's on the day of my period, so it's like 99% success rate from the day of your missed period, and put it in. And I always thought I was going to be like, okay, cover it, like not even, but then I'm like watching it. So this one wasn't a 2-line one. This one was a cross. And I don't think I've ever used the cross one before. But basically
it's easier to understand because
it
cross positive.
Yeah. If it's a single line, then it's negative. And I'm watching the first line come across, and then I'm watching a cross. And I was like, no. What?
Because it's not a strong second line. The first line that comes across, the negative line, right? The horizontal line is a lot bolder.
Yeah, but it was definitely there.
No, I'm not saying it wasn't there, but I'm saying it would be very easy to convince yourself that you're not actually seeing.
Yeah, and I wear contact lenses and I don't have them on in the morning, and it was like early and I'm tired. But I was like, what? And I literally got up off the loo at this test. I switched on the lights. I'm like, Terrence, wake up. What did you experience? Because you were fast asleep.
I was fast asleep. You switch on the lights.
Yeah.
I normally on the weekends, well, for us this is weekend because we're on leave, I'm normally the one that wakes up first.
Yeah.
And usually whoever wakes up, we don't switch the light on.
No.
So early start, light goes on, my wife's saying wake up. So I come to, the first thing I hear is you saying wake up in a panic state, and in my dream state I immediately go into like fight or flight mode.
Sorry.
No, but that was just for a moment.
Yeah.
And then I remembered what day it was.
Yeah.
And I remembered what you were going to do first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And literally within the space of 3 seconds, I realized what had happened. And I realized that the only reason why you're waking me up is because you have a positive test. I must say, there's still a part of me
that doesn't believe it's true.
that doesn't believe it. And there's still a part of me that feels like we've got some false positives.
Okay, how many? And then, okay, so
Yeah.
the odds of a false
Okay, so-
positive.
so
I
the-
feel like this needs to be a fact check that you add in, but what are the odds of a false positive? False negatives happen frequently. A false positive is incredibly rare. Incredibly rare.
No, so I don't know the science of it, and what I'm saying is, I understand that it's not a logical disbelief. It's I think I'm protecting myself, or preparing myself for still a potential future disappointment, because it wasn't the strongest line. It wasn't the strongest cross.
Got it, yeah. Let's pull it out.
Okay, I don't know if it's changed, but let me see. Actually, I haven't looked at this since this morning. I mean, okay, the reality is this is stronger than it was.
I think so.
Yeah, that is clearly positive. Like that, the horizontal and the vertical line here are the same. But this morning, the horizontal line, which if it's just a horizontal line then it's negative, was like a solid color.
Yeah.
And the vertical line was faint enough, it was there, but it was just on the verge of being faint enough for us to go, do we have line eyes at the moment, right? So it wasn't completely clear enough to go 100%, oh yes, clear.
Yeah.
Whereas right now, like, can you show me the other ones? So here's the thing, because that one was so faint, because it was a cheap early detection test, we then took 2
regular
tests, and then we had a third. Oh, okay. So one of these tests. Wait, which one is the early detection test?
The one of the cross.
The one on this hand.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a lot clearer than it was before. So the early detection test is a lot clearer than it was this morning, because that is indisputable.
Yeah.
The normal tests, the non-early detection tests, are still as faint as they were this morning. They're still like now they're visible. There's definitely a second line here.
Yeah.
But it's early morning. We have one test that was at the time faint. We have 2 other tests that were also faint, right? And you were asking me, do you see it?
Yeah.
Because it was faint enough for you to go,
I saw it. I definitely saw it.
I know you saw it, but I'm saying it wasn't like it was it's so strong, it's such a bold line that you wouldn't need confirmation from someone else.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I hear you.
So we had 3 tests.
Yeah.
The lines were there, but the lines were faint enough that there's still a shadow of doubt. Then you take the clear blue digital test, which unfortunately has expired. That comes back with a digital readout that says pregnant. Okay, so you can't get confused with that. There's no lines that's faint or whatever. It's digital readout that says pregnant, but it is expired.
Okay, so we're at the stage now with this episode. What do we need to do to kind of convince you?
I mean, okay, can I tell you?
Yes.
I am a lot more convinced now than I have ever been looking at this early pregnancy.
But I don't know if you're supposed to really trust tests beyond the first 5 minutes. As in...
And go away.
No.
It changes the chemistry of it.
I don't know. I think there's something about like, you read it after, read it 3 to 5 minutes and don't... Sometimes I think there's like what they call an evaporation line, which is like a very, 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 very faint, like as in if you're negative, but the test has been sitting, I don't know, for too long.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that is a much bolder cross than it was this morning.
Maybe our eyes are just more awake and caffeinated.
No. Cause, in fact, I have a photo of all 3.
Okay.
So I can show you that. Let me show you the difference. For me, that looks...
Yeah, but I still see that cross as clear as daylight.
You can see it, but it's definitely fainter. Anyway, the fact is it comes up on a photo.
It's pretty indisputable.
I think I want to wait a week.
Okay.
And I want to... I'm excited. I want to still be excited, but I don't know how long it's going to be before I go, oh no, this is real. Like, I think baby has to be in my arms, quite frankly, for it to be like really real.
Yeah, I think for me it's the first ultrasound. Yeah. Seeing proof of life and a heartbeat on the screen.
To go through the first, because that's what, after the first trimester.
No, it's in the middle of the first trimester.
So like 9 weeks.
Yeah, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, that's... I think that would be I mean, obviously, from you confirmation that you're pregnant, obviously that's beyond any amount of evidence that I would need. But I think then, of course, there's a whole bunch of other anxieties and nerves about getting excited. I mean, we know people and we've had friends who got really excited and then faced the extreme disappointment. And I think this is one of those really terrible points of life where you can be the most excited you've ever been and be the most devastated you've ever been in like the space of a day.
Absolutely.
So,
and there's a high chance, there's a 20% chance that this pregnancy will not progress past the first trimester.
Is that all pregnancies?
Yeah, I mean there are some statistical variations around sort of age and risk of previous miscarriage and things that would kind of change the statistic, but basically 1 in 4 or 1 in 5, depending on the stat, 1 in 5 is more common, pregnancies end in a miscarriage in the first trimester. So miscarriage is far more common than
because we don't hear about
we know. Well, I mean, yeah, I think maybe I'm in a space where I hear this a lot more. So I'm almost, I think that's the sort of protective thing for me. I'm in complete disbelief because I honestly did not think this was going to happen. Originally, when we kind of decided to jump into this, there was maybe a little bit of false sense of security, or security is not the right word, or assurance. We've done this before. Yeah, it was 8 years ago.
We were
but
pretty
like
cocky going into it.
We were a little bit, like 8 years ago.
Excuse the word usage. But we were like, we're going to knock this out the park. Let's get this done.
Let's get this done. It'll happen. Then we know, like we've said yes to trying effectively equals yes to having a baby. Yeah. And even knowing, as logical as I am at times, that this is, it's hard and people struggle. I was like, well, I didn't intentionally try last time.
That's why we had that original deal, because in your mind you thought 1 month trying was enough of a opportunity that you would feel like, okay, we gave it a fair shot.
Exactly.
And therefore, if it doesn't work after 1 month, Terrence can go and have his vasectomy, and then I'll feel I can resolve that. Of course, after 1 month, and actually doing the research, realizing how low the probability was.
It then didn't happen, and it didn't happen, and the sort of more it didn't happen, the more I kind of was like, okay, well, now I've gone from being quite hopeful to realizing that if this happens, it's probably not going to happen in a timeline that we would want, because there was that sense of a diminishing window from all the factors that we discussed in earlier episodes around the age of our children and my age.
But it wasn't completely a logic thing. You went into protecting your mind phase, which is expecting the worst and effectively saying you don't think you're ever going to be able to have a child.
Yes.
Which also isn't true. Like, that's equally as untrue as we could have a child tomorrow if we just wanted to.
Exactly.
Like, both things are untrue, but you did swing from one side to the complete other.
I was like, this just keeps, not happening. It's not meant to be. This is not an our thing. And, and even as I said, this cycle thinking, okay, we're going to have to start the decision around when to call it, because any pregnancy beyond this point equals a baby that comes after another birthday for me. And which puts me 1 year older, which, even just psychologically, even though it's like arbitrary, makes me feel like, it
wouldn't be what you particularly
It wasn't what I'd wanted. This was so effectively, without even knowing it, this was almost, I think, a bit of a cutoff month for me, even though we hadn't discussed it yet.
We would have started having the discussion next
Yes.
month, I think.
Yes.
I agree with you. We were in that space where next month we would have been like,
Yeah, it was starting to...
what does this end game look like?
Exactly. We were still, it was still an enjoyable process, and it would have definitely, like, I mean, for me, I think there's been so much that we've kind of learned from, all the intense conversations, not just the ones that we've recorded here, but the conversations that we've been having this year have been, really like fruitful. And
what do you mean by it?
I think we've just had so many conversations that have, forced us to really look at our marriage, really look at our relationship with each other, really assess our kind of our feelings and fitness towards being able to take on this challenge and adventure. I mean, thankfully, we have a whole recorded. We have we have 1% of the conversations recorded.
We have the essential parts.
And we obviously came into the recordings, kind of picking out, saying, what about some of the things we discussed this month? Let's pull out some of these threads.
The cliff notes of
exactly
all the discussions.
into this conversation.
And even I think being able to know that if we weren't able to have a third child, that we are incredibly lucky to have the life that we have.
Absolutely.
And that we would be able to eventually lean into that life and to all the good things that come with that life really well and enjoy it, and all the kinds of stuff that comes with only having 2 kids as opposed to having 3 kids, and going, well, mostly for me, the reverse of, okay, well, all the good things that come with having a third child, and leaning into those good things as well. I think that was also the big thing. And it's one of those moments where you realize how privileged you actually are, where you have these 2 big choices, or 1 big choice, but 2 big outcomes, 2 kids or 3 kids, and probably both of those options are great. Are going to be great. At the very least, they'll be fine. There's no like hysteria or anxiety, like we can't have a third child. If we have a third child, everything will fall apart. Actually, I mean, it'll be difficult. It might be even more difficult than we expect, but I think all of our conversations have shown me how much resilience we've built into our lives.
Absolutely.
Financially, relationally, with our mental health, with all of these things, we've built up a pack of resources that either way would allow us to thrive in whatever situation.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, this has been a really valuable season for us. And I think it would be naive for me to say that I knew, like, we were going to wrap up the season and it was going to be a no. I mean, we have told 1 or 2 people about this journey in person who will be hearing it not for the first time when they hear this podcast. And, I was reflecting to a friend just this week, knowing that, if this journey is a no and it closes, I need to call up my therapist. I need to really kind of commit to the process of closing this chapter well. Because it was going to be a hard close. And I think that was one of the things I realized. I think I knew instinctively, but didn't know quite how much I wanted it until it really was an option. And then it wasn't happening.
But you 5 years ago, exact same situation. If we were in the exact same situation 5 years ago, you might not have come to that conclusion of, I know I need to go see a therapist for this. I know I can get better. I know I can feel better, and I know I can process this. I just know I need to get some help to do that. It would have been a case of, no, I need to be stoic. I need to know I can't let my husband show how disappointed I actually am, or I need to, there's a whole bunch of stuff that both you and I wouldn't have done that would have made us less resilient to cope with whatever changes came around. So that's exactly the kind of thing I mean. Where again, if you need to go to get mental health support, we can make that happen, which is a huge privilege, especially in this country. And B, we would want that for each other. Like we want it for ourselves and for each other. Like it wouldn't be a shocking thing if that would happen. So,
and I think maybe because this journey's been so intentional, even just today, I mean, I think we've been checking in on each other, and I mean, I think you had a very, I wasn't sure how you were going to react, but I think there was a fair amount of disbelief this morning, needing like, we've got the recorded evidence, and I'm like, I'm seeing the line, buddy, like it's there. But I think because we've been, I understand that even though we've chosen this and we have actively chosen this, you can choose something and it can still be complex, right? It can still be overwhelming when it happens, even when you chose it. You can still be, your reaction can still be unpredictable. And I think having some grace for each other, maybe 5 years ago I would have been like quite disappointed or taken aback, or not disappointed
that I wasn't jumping up and down on the bed, and
not taken aback. What's the word I'm looking for? Like insecure. Yes. Oh my gosh, this man is gonna want to run for the hills.
So what's interesting is that I still don't think why my reaction was as muted as it was this morning.
Okay,
why it wasn't as big as you thought it was going to be. I think you saw that disbelief and the muted reaction as oh no, he's suddenly anxious, and maybe like there's a moment of regret or like fear or like anxious, like he's suddenly anxious about having a third child. That's actually not what it is. My muted tone was actually more as a result of your, we spoke earlier now about your pendulum swing from oh yeah, we can definitely fall pregnant, it's going to happen, to oh, it's never going to happen, it's impossible, it's incredibly unlikely, no. Even last night, that was your language.
Yeah, I was like, this is not, I'm going to wake up and have a period, obviously.
And you were doing that to protect yourself, right? Because like we were saying, it would be pretty devastating if you did discover that you couldn't have children, if you couldn't fall pregnant at all, right? If that was something we discovered. And I worry that with these tests, my disbelief and my muted response was like, okay, these are early detection tests. They're not like screaming, you're pregnant. It's not a doctor with a blood test saying it. You're not 3 months pregnant. It's not 100% certain, and that level of it could still not happen, or it could happen and it could be a miscarriage very early on. But more about it not being real, it being a false positive, the test being bad, us not reading it properly, it being too early, whatever it is, and you having to go through that experience of now of having built up your guard, then letting your guard down and allowing yourself to feel excited and to be legitimately excited about this thing that you really want, and then to have that devastation that come down on you. I was really, really worried about that for you. So I was kind of trying, and I wasn't doing this thoughtfully. It was just my gut instinct was to kind of like secure the fort that you had built over the last few months to protect yourself. And I was like, okay, I think it was a case of like, okay, she needs to be excited about this. Like, she should be excited about this. She deserves to be excited about this. She deserves to be, but she also deserves to also have someone holding down the fort, being calm, slowing things down, maybe being a little bit of a basically reversing the roles.
Yeah.
Because I think it is important for someone to be like slowing everything down and pressing the brakes and having the other person like press the accelerated pedal to go. Like, I think that's what works in a relationship. But to know that sometimes those roles switch.
Yeah.
And I just felt like this morning there was a role switch. And so it wasn't because I'm not excited. It wasn't because I'm not that if this is actually happening, that I'm not overjoyed and excited and can't wait for this to happen, and that I'm not having these giddy moments in the pit of my stomach just thinking about you getting pregnant and having a little one crawling around our grass and having a little one cuddle in, and all the stuff, all the good stuff we spoke about over the last few episodes. I'm very excited about those things, but until we get there, you're going to be going through the most, and I'm already feeling that kind of dad responsibility of like securing everything, like nailing everything down to make sure that everyone's okay.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I understand that. I think also the thing around the test is knowledge, that I have around tests.
Yes.
Totally. So we have 4 very positive tests in front of us. Like, that doesn't happen.
Also, they all look cheap to me. They all look very unreliable.
I bought them myself. So, and there's different types and brands. And so I guess I know how rare it is to get a false positive. It happens, but it is really rare. 4 false positives.
3 of them weren't even early detection.
No, exactly. So I think it's sort of based off of that, and also, I mean, I have seen fainter pregnancy tests that are positive. I mean, where you are really squinting.
Yeah.
I think my initial reaction is, it's so different from last time where I kind of took one because similar kind of symptoms, but I was like, I was further along, and a colleague was like, maybe you should just take a test. I was like, what? I hadn't thought about it because there's just no way. This was just a different kind of moment, and I guess I'm glad that we could be present in that moment. And even if this doesn't happen,
I hope I didn't like ruin the moment for you.
No, I don't think. No. I mean, I didn't think that we were going to be. First of all, we're not like part of being that advanced paternal age. We're not 22-year-olds jumping on a bed,
jumping on the couch.
Exactly. That wasn't going to happen. We had children sleeping, and yeah, so. But I mean, I think it was shock because it was shocking, but it wasn't. We weren't swearing. You weren't like running away. You weren't. So I think you responded almost as I would expect you to respond. I had no clue how I was going to respond until I saw it, but then I was like, nope, this is real. This is real. The next one's real. Oh my gosh, I'm pregnant.
This is weird, right? Because in one sense, it's the end of this journey. It's the end of the original purpose of this podcast, because the original purpose of this podcast was to ask the question, how do people get to a point of deciding to have the next child, or the first child, or the next child, whatever 1, 2, 3 or 4, whatever the number, 5, 6, 7, whatever the number is. And then it morphed into, okay, well, while you're making this decision and you're potentially trying, what does that look like? What does it feel like? How do people with maybe different ideas of what their lives look like bring those ideas together and find a way forward to be excited about whatever it is? Now we're at a point where we've done all those things, and on one hand, I kind of thought that if we were going to continue to try, then it would have morphed again into, what is that like? How long do you continue to try? When do you at first it's how do you decide to start trying? And then it would morph into how you decide to stop trying. Yeah. That seemed like the natural story arc. And then you decided to go get pregnant.
Totally on my own.
Totally on your own.
Totally independent. You had
away.
nothing to do with that.
I was, I don't know where I was, but no, I was definitely there. So this does feel like the end of the journey, and then obviously the start of another journey, which ends hopefully after 9 months, and then that's another journey starts after that. So
we're just going to be creating different variations of podcasts going forward.
Maybe it seems to be a really good way for us to process our information. But maybe this should be the end of the podcast. We've answered the question. This is the way we went about this process. Is it a way we think everyone else should go about this process? Probably not. You might not need to buy audio recording equipment, and every few weeks go, oh, we better record this episode.
Yeah.
And every time you have a conversation about something, go, do you know what? This is a good episode. We should record it. You might not need to go through that way. You might not need to make a deal about vasectomy or no vasectomy.
Yeah.
You might not have to debate and argue and trying to convince the other person and do a pros and cons list the way we did. But we got through this very tumultuous and potentially relationship, maybe not ending, but definitely relationship altering conversation without any of those things happening.
Yeah.
There wasn't arguments. There was a lot of understanding. There was a lot of listening, especially from me. I have the audio to prove it because I edited it, and there are long parts where that second microphone is very quiet. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how to end this.
No.
It's one of those stupid, again, talking about cheesy movies. It's one of those stupid movies that end with, it says the end, and then they scratch at the end, and it says beginning. That's
That's cheesy. That's way too cheesy. No, I think maybe we end this with a few reflections on the journey, takeaways. I mean, I think, yes, it's been a conversation that we've been having through the course of this year on the podcast, but it's also been a conversation. It's actually been
3 years in the
3
making.
years in the making. I think it's also important to contextualize that this was not something where we had never spoken about it, then decided let's start speaking about it and put the microphone on. It's been 3 years, and I kind of can't believe how the conversation has grown and progressed, and how we've kind of found each other.
There was a time when it didn't look like we were going to find each other.
Absolutely.
There was a time in those 3 years where it looked like we were always going to be at odds,
Yeah.
and where you were going to be miserable and I was going to be miserable about this particular issue, and it really did feel like there was no resolution out of that wasn't going to be very, very difficult for at least one of us to deal with. But because it was going to be difficult for one of us to deal with, the other one would also find that difficult.
Yeah.
I think that was weirdly the problem, but also the benefit, because neither of us wanted the other one to quote unquote lose. I guess that's why we kept having the conversation over and over again, because we kept coming back to it and going well, if there is a way for us to have a third child, because I know it would make Julie happy, or for not just to make you happy, but I know this will make you happy. So if there is a way that I could be happy about it, let's I'm willing to explore that, because I prefer you to be happy than not happy. And I know we've had conversations where you've said the same thing. If there was a way you could just be content.
Just be content and pick a different kind of path for us and have that be really obvious. And I think maybe that's also the learning, is that I almost thought in one sense it would be very obvious one way or the other. Relocation, or a big life event that kind of goes, okay, no. And that wasn't, I'm sure that's a story for many people, but that wasn't what happened to us. Have our circumstances changed since we started this conversation, probably in earnest about 3 years ago? Yes, they have. I mean, we have moved, a number of things have happened, but
a lot has happened in the last 3 years.
A lot has happened, but in one sense, I just think it hasn't been life altering. What I think has been more refined has been the process of us really figuring out how to be the best kind of support person and really try to understand the other person's point of view, and to kind of also really look at what the various different options could present, because there wasn't actually the clearest. There wasn't anything. There was no sign. We didn't come, I don't know, someone didn't come and say, you're going to have a baby, or you should have a baby. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what the sign for having a baby is.
No, yeah,
but
there
we didn't get that either.
And again, normally, all of the other big decisions we ever made in our life, the ones that were worked out well were decisions that we both knew was the right decision. Getting married, moving into our first flat when we bought our first flats, adopting Liam, moving into this house, jobs that both you and I, like, when there were moments when we were both like, yes, we've always been happy with that decision years later. And this has been one of those times when we just have not been able to get into the right space when we were both yes about it. And I think that's where we struggled. But I agree with you. I think just being able to see each other and hear each other and assume the best of each other. I think that was the other thing, to like, no, my wife is not nagging me to have a third child. She's not trying to guilt trip me into that. She's not trying to cajole me into that, as much as I joke about you trying to push me into having a third child. Like, that, I know that would be the worst possible thing for you. You would not want to be seen as that or do that. And just assuming that about you did make it easier to go, okay, so I'm not thinking the worst of her. or if I can assume that she has the best intentions, what does that actually mean? What does that look like? How can we process this endeavor, thinking the best of you?
And I think we're just not, we've maybe lost some of the naivety around there's an absolute right or wrong way, which I think maybe 10 years ago that would have been our frame of reference.
To you, but okay.
Yeah, sure. But whereas I think it's been really abundantly clear that either way there's going to be some wins, and either way there's also going to be some hardships. I mean, there's we have no clue what the future holds for the next 9 months. It could be a miscarriage, it could be a hard pregnancy, it could be it could be a really great pregnancy. I don't know.
See, and this is what I immediately, now what you were saying, the first thing I wanted to do was, like I was saying earlier, take the reverse role. As soon as you start saying could be a difficult pregnancy, it could be a short pregnancy, and I can immediately go, oh, maybe it's going to be like a really easy. You have these women who have really easy pregnancies. They hardly feel it. There's no like major. I say hardly feel it. I mean, like, relatively to like the difficult pregnancies, like, things go the way they're supposed to go, and the birth process is as smooth as it could be, and you feel fulfilled, and it's lovely, and the baby comes out with a full head of hair, gurgling, and wonderful, and happy, and amazing. And that could also happen.
So what I was trying to say is that we actually just don't know. There's some challenges. There's going to be some tightening of belts financially. There's going to be some, moving around of space in our home and a bit more squash in the car and whole, as the harder part of the journey. But there's also going to be this incredible joy with this new person, hopefully joining our family. On the other side, it could have been, that this journey ended and there would have been a lot of grief with no baby at the end of it, no pregnancy, but potentially a bunch of joy and kind of settling into a rhythm that we're currently in anyway, but just really leaning into it. So I think that is when I talk about the naivety, it's seeing the good isn't diminished by the hardship, and the hardship isn't
isn't a surprise,
but it isn't also just made invisible by the good. Like, you hold both, and that's okay.
It's like we've found a way to be content in whatever reality we're in, so that doesn't mean that we're oblivious to the reality that we're in. So if you weren't able to fall pregnant and we decided that we weren't going to continue trying, and we close that door completely, the reality is, there would be grief. There would be a sense of loss. There would be a sense of what if, right? Regret, maybe. But there's still a way that you can be content in that reality. So we're not ignoring those feelings. We deal with those feelings. We work through them. We get the help that we need to process them properly. And even while you're feeling those feelings, you can still be content in the fact that you have 2 wonderful kids. You have a sexy farmhand-esque husband. You have a wonderful home. You have friends. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I agree with you. It's not about being oblivious to the tough parts of the reality, but it's being able to take on those tough parts and also be aware that they are good parts. finding contentment in that.
Yeah. And that contentment isn't something that happens right away. I'm not even, as you said now, I'm not, I'm obviously excited, but I'm not naive to the fact that there are hard parts, and there will be even some loss of, sleep and flexibility and money and a whole bunch of things coming our way that will also have to be dealt with. But it's possible because we have realistic ideas of the picture.
Yes.
Of what the picture was going to be either way. But obviously we're really, as it stands, happy that we've got the picture that we've got.
Yes. It still feels like a hazy picture to me, though. I think that's the thing. That's where is where my hesitancy comes. It's not whether I'm happy with the picture that we got. It's that I if you were 6 months pregnant and like you're really starting to show, and our kids are talking to the baby through your tummy, and you're waddling a bit or whatever, I think I'd be a lot more content with that picture. Yeah. It's a little bit.
It's abstract right now.
Exactly. It's exactly abstract, and I've never been good with abstract. I'm a very pragmatic, very literal person. I can't do metaphor. I can't do, I'm not good with art. I'm a very, very I'm like Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. Like whatever you say, I take it on the word value that you're saying. and right now everything is metaphorical and abstract. And so I feel like the picture I have in my mind of where we're at right now and what our future is going to be like is very, very hazy. But I am looking forward to the next few weeks and months as that picture coalesces a bit more and I start to see what it's actually going to be like. Because also once I can see, once that image gets a bit more solid, a lot like that pregnancy test, once the line is solid, I can decide how I'm going to react. I can choose my reaction. I can choose my path forward. Whereas right now, I don't feel like I have the correct information to know how to act effectively for everyone. Yeah. And so I'm feeling like I'm on uncertain ground. We have someone who says he doesn't like metaphors. I am using a lot of metaphors in this statement. So I do feel like I'm on really shaky ground, and I feel like I'm not sure how to keep everyone safe.
I hear you. I have to see. I have no clue when we're going to release this, but we'll have to do some sort of a post edit reflection when we get closer to the time. Okay. I love you.
I love you too. Well done.
Hey,
good job. Good job of getting pregnant.
Good job, Summers. Good job, Egg.
Yeah. Go team. You have such a cute laugh.
I just think it's so awkward.
So we recorded that episode on the 11th of July, 2023, of our Lord, whatever they say. You can tell we're still kind of giddy from all of this news. It is now the 28th of September, so there has been several weeks, in fact several scans, since we recorded that episode.
Correct. We are very happy to say that it's been pretty smooth sailing so far. I have made it out of the first trimester, and we are about 15 weeks along now, which is crazy. We are officially having a baby in the first quarter of next year.
So I have to ask, because we recorded that literally the day we found out you were pregnant, it's now been, like you're saying, quite a few weeks since then. Listening to yourself talk about your feelings, your situation, was there anything that surprised you about the way you were talking about that day?
I think it was just obvious how surreal it was, because it was just so unexpected. We really were getting ready, as we said in the episode, to kind of close up shop and make the decision that obviously it was meant to be, 2 and done. 3 was in fact a crowd we were not willing to entertain. And so I think it was just a complete overwhelming, this is not quite real reality. Like, it isn't possible. It just, I can hear that in our voice. Yeah. And how was it like for you to listen back to yourself?
So I definitely sound a weird mixture of calm and anxious. I don't hear a lot of excitement in my voice in this whole episode. which is strange because thinking back, I was very excited. Like the overwhelming feeling that I've had over the last few weeks, over the last 2 months, has been that of excitement. And I don't feel that was very well represented in that episode.
You were in disbelief, though. You could not believe,
Yes.
despite having us literally sitting in this exact same spot in July with 4 positive pregnancy tests on your lap. It was like you just could not will your brain to compute that this was real.
I think because of all the conversations we've had, and also just in general, that moment is very complex, right? And I think I kind of dug into that in the episode. So I can hear my brain processing the complexity. And, you know, I like the fact that we recorded it on the day because we now listened to a real, what we were actually thinking and experiencing at that moment. But the problem is that my brain hadn't had enough time to process the complexity of the feelings. So I wasn't able to get accurately across how I was actually feeling. Whereas now I can look back and go, yes, I was anxious about what if something goes wrong? What if the tests are false positive? What if, you know, there's, you know, in the early weeks, something, you know, it doesn't go the way we hoped it would go. You know, all those anxieties were there, but also all of the excitement, also all of the, like, when can we start telling people? When can we start, you know, getting into, when can we start buying baby stuff? When can we start talking about how we're going to change the house? Like, also experiencing all of those excitements as well. So now I can explain that a lot clearer than I could back then. But wow, since then we've had 2 baby scans. Baby is doing oh so well. You're doing such a good job.
It's definitely more apparent this time around. It's like I thought I'd given my uterus a good number of years to, you know, get back into its physical shape, but apparently the muscle memory was there. It's like at week 11, it was like, boom, you are pregnant, and it was getting really difficult to keep this under wraps.
And the first trimester, which you just got through, was a bit of a rough one.
It was my quote unquote advanced maternal age, I think. I was definitely really tired and quite queasy at very specific points in the day, every single day. But our boys, I think we can speak about a little bit, segue to our boys a little bit, because I'm sure people must be curious how they've responded. I mean, they've just been phenomenal. And when I was so sick, they were just so kind and so caring, checking up on me, asking if they could bring me some water, or Mum, can I make you a cup of tea? Mum, do you need a back rub? How is this? We call the baby the proton. You know, how's the proton treating you today? And I just can't help but compare this time around, even though I was so much younger last time, but chasing a toddler, crawling baby and being pregnant, like, it's just, in one sense, this is very much not like my baby or even our baby as in you and me, but it's like our family's baby, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, we've all taken ownership, including the boys. And I think all of that daydreaming that we had about how the boys are going to respond, how we hoped they would respond, with, you know, talking to the baby through your tummy and being all excited about it, and thinking about all the little games they're going to play and how they're going to use the baby to manipulate you to get them more cookies. They're literally saying and planning all this stuff. So it's really gone as wonderfully as we could have hoped.
Have they surprised you in any way?
One of them has. There was one in the lead up to all of this that was begging. One of our sons was begging us to have another baby, and he was very excited. He found out he was the second person after me to find out that you were pregnant, and he was super excited. The other child, who was a little bit more ambivalent, or maybe not even ambivalent, just uninterested in the idea, he's been really switched on.
So switched on,
and more than anything, maybe not so excited about being an older brother, but more, like you're saying, very caring. How's Mom doing? Is she okay? Like, really stepping into the role of, I'm going to be one of the older people in the family now, and so I need to take a little bit of control, and I need to, like, be more responsible, which has been really nice to see.
It's been really precious. And yeah, we've just, the family and few friends who do know at this stage, before it now is officially out in the world, have been so kind and so caring. And I think that was something that I had mentioned in the podcast a few times that I was really worried that we were going to be judged quite harshly, and maybe the judgment's still coming, but we've actually, from what's been forthcoming towards us, has been nothing but support and encouragement.
The amount of screams you have received from your friends, without fail, there has been like shaky fists of excitement and squeals.
Yeah.
And I've gotten quite a few pats in the back.
My friend just bought this baby, its first proper, brand new to it, little like outfit set and little lovey teddy and blanket, and I just was like, you're not just a figment of the imagination. You exist and are coming, and you are loved and treasured, and
it's so loved.
it's amazing.
This baby has so many aunts and uncles just waiting for like non-family, non-related aunts and uncles all over the place. That's just so excited for this baby. So we've felt very loved and supported by our close friends and family.
So where to next? Because this is the end of a chapter for us.
I mean, look, we're going to be pretty busy for the next conceivable lifetime. But I also wanted to say that, for the last 5 weeks, or now 6 weeks, as we've released this podcast, we've been talking about the great support we've had from our friends and family, but getting all the support we've got from you, the people who's been listening to this podcast, messaging in, saying that, they've related to the conversations, or maybe they haven't related to the conversations, but have been really grateful for like the open space and to hear a couple talk in the way we've spoken. That's been really, I felt very supported by that too, because
absolutely,
a lot of people
amazing.
have been saying, a little bit backpatty, but like, oh, you guys really sound like you care about each other, that you're ready to support each other, that like it sounds like you as a couple are in a good space. And to read people say that about us kind of makes me feel like we've got this. And I thought we had it. I knew, when we started this journey, I'm like, we've got this, but to have other people look in and go, oh no, those people are going to be fine, has been pretty cool.
Yeah, I think I've just been so touched. Every single person who maybe like, if it was me, I guess I'm in awe about whether it would be weird to drop a message or a DM or WhatsApp, but go ahead and do it anyway. It's not weird. It's so wonderful. We've just been so appreciative, and I think I've been so encouraged that beyond it just being entertaining or enjoyable to listen to you and I banter, and
we never did get to that concept,
that it's had the effect that we also really hoped it would have, is that it was kind of allowing people to have a tool to refer to spark conversations that they were wanting to have. I just received a message from a listener today saying, that her and her partner have been umming and ahhing about whether or not to start a family, and she's sort of sent him the podcast, and they've been listening to it and discussing what this means for their own relationship, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
Little scary. I'm it's not a textbook, guys. It's just
please, we keep saying that.
Please.
Let's end the podcast the way we started. This is not us telling you how to do this. We are not Esther Perel.
Absolutely.
Okay?
We have no qualifications in this field.
We are just Terrence and Julie, and we're just showing you rather how we've done it.
But if it sparks, if listening to us sparks conversation like you would when you're at a dinner table with friends and they're sharing their experience, and you go, how would we apply that, then that's been a really cool outcome.
What I'm trying to do is try to take all the credit but none of the culpability. So if we can keep that vibe going. Okay. So yes, we sparked the conversation, but we have no responsibility for the results of that conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I think the next chapter, I know we did our Instagram live last week answering some of your questions, and there was a real sense of what's going to happen for season 2. I think, as you've said, this has been a real creative project, and that's just given me such a new respect for podcasters. And obviously you've been doing this for a lot longer, and you have another podcast, but for me, just stepping into the space and thinking how much, we've had conversations about the conversations, like conversations about the topic of having another baby or not, then conversations about how we spark the conversation and how those conversations
conversations are being received. It's just,
and the angle of the
it's
conversation,
just-
and who's this for, and what should the artwork be
It's
like, and what are we trying to say this
Yeah.
way, and should we even say this thing at all?
Exactly. Like we now actually need to pivot our time into like planning to get our lives in order to welcome this baby. So
That being said,
mm-hmm.
if there is a big response for a season 2,
Mm-hmm.
and there are a lot of people saying we would love to hear a season 2, and we would love for season 2 to be focused on this particular issue, or for season 2 to maybe have us chat to other couples to see how they dealt with these issues or something along that
Mm-hmm.
line, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah.
But I need you listening right now to let us know that that's the case.
Definitely. And to be gracious that the timeline will be dependent on a heavily pregnant, geriatric, advanced maternal aged woman, or someone, or a couple in the throes of the postpartum newborn sleepless life.
Do you think people would want?
Just saying.
Do you think people would want a last trimester podcast
Oh my gosh, where Julie just
with a live stream?
where Julie just grunts
Just
at the labor. No, I just,
at the
I know
delivery
I've
day.
been vulnerable. I know we've like let people in deep, but not that deep.
It's like, I don't know, is this 10 centimeters or not? Let's take a look. Let's have a poll. Is Julie this dilated enough to start pushing?
Oh,
That's a
absolutely not.
parasocial relationship gone too far.
Absolutely, we will not do that. But I think
It would get so many views.
I don't want that's the wrong kind of views and all the way. No. I definitely think we can explore a second season. I'm sure we will, because this has been so fun. This has been such a great way for us to connect as well, recording it. But I think for the meantime, I'm sure that we'll be sharing lots about this journey that we've had to keep under wraps from social media
Yeah.
for the last, we found out at 4 weeks. So the last sort of 9 weeks. And I'm really excited to be able to post and share some of the content that we've already captured in the first trimester. And so I think we'll probably focus on that for a bit, and then see when we're feeling like we want to sit down and talk to each other again.
Oh yeah, I'm so tired of you right now. It's sitting across comfortably waiting for me to finish setting everything up.
Yep.
But in all seriousness, I've really enjoyed doing this with you.
Yeah,
This
this
has been fun.
really fun.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening. Of course, all the episodes are still going to be available on all of the platforms. So if you either want to go back and listen to something that you thought you may have missed, maybe you just jumped into this last episode because you
Oh,
just
that'll be confusing.
because you just wanted the spoiler, that's fine. But maybe go back and listen. Or if you want to share the whole season with a friend or someone you think would benefit from listening to it, please do just send them. You can find all the links on AfroDaddyCT when you go to Instagram, or pop us an email, afrodaddyct@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know about your thoughts about the podcast and whether or not you would like to hear more about this kind of thing.
Sounds like three was a crowd we're willing to engage in.
There's so many kids.
So many kids. We're going to be so tired next year.